Hey guys, it's Hannah from Hannah's Homemaking. Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be focusing on all things sourdough. So we're going to be going through my day-to-day process with my sourdough starter, along with making a loaf of sourdough. I'm very excited to share with you my process. What works for me might not work for you. It also kind of depends on your climate, where you live, especially like your home environment too can kind of affect things. But you know, it's just a process. Sourdough is it's kind of complicated, but the process itself is pretty easy. You're just trying to learn for what to look for with the sourdough. So we are gonna go ahead and get started. Alrighty guys, so what you're going to be needing today, well, for everyday for sourdough maintenance is you're going to be needing a sourdough starter. You can see mine here. It's not fed yet, so it's really loose and you could smell it. It smells kind of like fruity and really like alcoholic almost, like it smells like ethanol. So you'll need that. You can get it from a friend that's pre-started. Mine is about 2, maybe 3 years old now. So I've been keeping it alive for that long. I would suggest if you're a newbie to get a starter from someone. But if not, you can make your own starter using flour and water in a jar. I can go over a whole process with that on another video because that's going to take like multiple days. But usually a mature starter works the best and it'll give you the best results for what you're looking for. I have given my sourdough starter just like parts of it to like my friends and family, and they've done well with it, so I suggest that. So other than this, you're going to need your kitchen scale again, which is very important, along with some bread flour. I use the bread flour for when I am baking the loaf, and especially like the morning of feeding the sourdough starter with the bread flour. That way it gets active quicker. Otherwise, day to day, I use all-purpose flour. Some people say, oh, you're only supposed to use like unbleached flour. I've never had an issue with bleached flour. I know that some people feel very strongly about it. You do as you desire, but I just use just regular all-purpose flour, and then for the baking I use enriched unbleached bread flour. I personally use the Gold brand bread flour just because I'm very sensitive to malted barley. It makes my stomach really hurt. So this one in particular does not have that ingredient in it, so I will make all my loaves with that. You're gonna want to need a spoon, a measuring cup with some warm water, and then also if you really are feeling fancy, you can get your own wheat and grind your own wheat flour. I have been experimenting with this lately. This is the Palouse brand, and they're honestly amazing. Their quality of their product is great. I am currently using their hard white wheat, their spring hard white wheat. If you just smell it, it smells amazing. It smells like farm. But yeah, so I'll be using this later for some of my flour as well. But I usually use like a third of this and then 2/3 of the regular bread flour that's enriched. Alright, so those are all the ingredients you'll need. It's pretty simple. Oh, I forgot, you need salt too for the bread, but that's later. And I'm sure everyone has salt, so not a big deal. But yeah, that's all of what you really need right now. Later when we bake, you're probably going to want a Dutch oven. I have one here, a ceramic Dutch oven. They seem to work best for me. You can bake your sourdough like not in a Dutch oven, and you can create your own steam using a baking tray and filling it with hot water, and that kind of creates the same like effect. But I feel like the Dutch oven gives me the best results for my loaves, and I'm just really excited to show you that. I feel like it's really worth the investment. I got mine at Sam's Club. They're available at Costco, Amazon, Kohl's, literally anywhere. I bet Target sells them now too. But yeah, I think that they're worth the investment. You can make so many soups with them too, so it's not just for the sourdough. But yeah, so here we go. Alrighty guys, let's feed our sourdough starter for the day. So today, right now, it's 9 in the morning. I normally like to start feeding my my sourdough starter earlier in the morning to kind of get it going and processing. But my husband was up this morning and I didn't want to bother him with my videos, so we're a little bit late into the process, but that's fine. I have a pretty mature sourdough starter, so it usually rises pretty quickly. So not a big deal. Any other day, feeding wise for the sourdough starter, you just want to feed it within a 24-hour period. Usually, like, you can really tell when it's hungry because it gets the alcohol like layer on top, or it gets like really slack. Marshall, stop. I'm sorry. There's a lot of distractions today between our dog and the washer, so I apologize. But we're going with it because it's Saturday and we need to do our laundry. But yeah, so you'll want to feed your sourdough starter every 24 hours. If you don't have time or you're going on vacation, you can feed the sourdough starter, and then you can like put the lid on and screw it on, and then stick it in the refrigerator, and it'll still stay alive. It just kind of puts it into hibernation of sorts, and that way it just doesn't die while you're gone. I've had success with that. I haven't refrigerated this one in quite a while just because I haven't been on vacation for like a long time. Do that, or you can send it to a friend and say, hey, can you feed this every day? But yeah, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our sourdough starter. You're gonna want to discard half of what you originally had. I had my sourdough starter in another jar this morning, and I just transferred it to this new jar. The old jar, you can kind of see like when you're mixing it and stuff like that, it gets kind of gunky, so I change my jar about maybe like once a month, or sooner if you want. I just now it looks nice and pretty in this brand new jar, and you can see it bubble and stuff once it grows. But I had about double of what I have right now, so I discarded about half, and I'm ready to put flour and water in it to make it grow. So I will put it on the scale, turn it on and zero it. Then I'm gonna take the bread flour that I'm using, and I'm gonna put 50 grams of the flour and then 50 grams of water in there, and mix it. I do equal parts flour and water, and it seems to work well for me. I know some people have different ratios that it work best for them, but this is the simplest and easiest way for me to do it. So we'll weigh that out. And bread flour is like a lot denser than regular like all-purpose flour, so it usually takes less because of that. Alright, 50 grams of water. And today I'm going to be using warm water because we're going to be working with it, and I'd rather have this pretty like quick because it's already 9 o'clock, and I usually start like making the loaf around like 11. So you'll want it to be pretty warm, room or like around your wrist, so at least like body temperature. You can use cold water on regular days. It doesn't really make a difference other than kind of slowing the process down. So we're just going to add 50 grams of water. Alright, so we added it all together and now we're just going to mix it and your sourdough starter's fed. Marshall, stop. Sorry, the neighbors are out doing yard work. He's not very happy about it. Alright, so you'll notice that like once you start mixing it, it gets pretty like thick, and that's good. That's what you want it to be. It's kind of gloopy. Before it was really slack, it could slide off the spoon really quickly. But yeah, you just want it to be pretty gloopy. And another tip that people often do for when they know when the sourdough starter has risen is they put a little rubber band around where the sourdough starter has begun once you fed it, and then you could see it easily rise up to doubling. I'm pretty comfortable with mine, so I don't really need to do that, and I know what to look for when it's ready to be used. But if you want to do that, that's great. So I'm just gonna leave it here. I'll turn on my scale so it doesn't die. I put the top of the mason lid like slightly off of it. That way it has air to breathe and to grow, to incorporate that air in there. If you completely seal it, it's gonna explode because the carbon dioxide that it creates just bubbles and bubbles and bubbles, and it'll create a lot of pressure. So just be careful with that. So I just slightly off-put it, and we're gonna wait until it's ready. I usually think that about 2 hours is pretty good. 2 hours-ish to let it rise. So we'll just go from there, and I'll show you what it looks like. Alrighty guys, so now it's about 11 o'clock here. I am going to start creating the sourdough, mixing all the ingredients together that we need so that the sourdough has enough time to rise and ferment and stuff like that for you. So here's our starter. It's risen quite a bit. I feel like it's enough for us to work with. You could probably see some of the bubbles in here. Sometimes you get better than others, but the top you could see, that has some pretty good bubbles in it. It smells nice and fresh too. It doesn't have that really intense smell anymore. It just smells really nice and light and fruity. So that means that it's pretty ready to be worked with. What we're gonna be needing is definitely a bowl, your scale. I have one of these fancy whisks that I use to incorporate all of the ingredients together, but you don't have to have this. I just find that it's easier for me to do that. If you don't, then you can use your hands, but it just gets a little bit messy. But yeah, and then I also use a shower cap, just really cheap one, honestly. I think I got a pack at King Soopers for $5 or something like that. But I use that to keep the moisture in once I leave it to rest, for all the many times that we do that. But yes, we'll get there. First of all, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be setting our scale to 0. And we're going to be wanting to use 100 grams of the starter and then 350 grams of warm water. That's going to be too much. Oh, that's okay. Alrighty, so I have about 104 grams of starter, which that's fine. A little bit over is fine. But yeah, so this is gonna be our rising agent. Since the starter is like alive, the yeast is growing, it's producing all of the gases and doing the fermentation process. It's gonna do the work of like putting yeast into a dough. So we're gonna use that, and then we want to get that 350 grams of warm water. We use warm water to kind of speed up the process, like I said earlier. But we're gonna put the water in there, and then we're gonna whisk it around until it's like a really milky texture. And you don't want this water too hot, or else you'll kind of kill off the bacteria and stuff that's in here that we want. So I'm gonna zero my scale again. And looking for 350. There we go. Alrighty, so I'm gonna mix this guy together. And you want it pretty like mixed in, just because once like we put the flour in, you just want this mixture to be equally distributed throughout so that it rises properly. So we got that all mixed up. You could probably see in here it's pretty milky. And then from here, we'll zero that guy again, and we're gonna add 500 grams of bread flour. So I originally said that I was gonna mill my own flour and use a third of that, but I think for today I'm just going to be using the bread flour. I just kind of got caught up on another project that I'm doing, so I didn't have time to mill it for you guys. It's pretty easy, honestly. It's just this attachment for the KitchenAid. You just pour it in there and then you let it run, but it just takes like 10 minutes or so, and I would rather just get this going, and that way it has time to ferment. So yes, you're going to be adding 500 grams of bread flour of your choice. Go. 500 grams of the flour, and then you're gonna want to do 10 grams of salt. I just use the salt that I have in the pantry. Doesn't particularly matter. The only important thing is that I add this in when I add the flour, and I put it on top of the flour. That way there's no direct contact of the salt to the sourdough starter. The salt could potentially kill the starter, so it's just really important that it's kind of mixed in at the same time as the flour. That way it has the best chance to do. So we're gonna add 10 grams of that. Beautiful. Alright, so this is literally all the ingredients you need for the sourdough. We're gonna mix this together. It's gonna become a really like shaggy texture, like really thick and hard to work with and really sticky and gooey. And so we are going to do that. After we do that, we're gonna leave it for an hour to kind of settle, and for the starters to start, you know, feeding and being active with this flour. And so, oops, goodness gracious, go ham over here. But yeah, so we're gonna leave it for that hour, and then after that we're gonna do what's called stretch and folds. And stretch and folds pretty much help develop gluten in the bread. That way it has a nice structure and it's not flat. So you can see it's really intense. It's like really, it's still like really clumpy and stuff. That's why I said using this whisk thing is really nice so that I don't have to get my hands too dirty. I just kind of do it until it starts like getting together into its own ball, and then it starts to absorb all of that, or the flour starts to absorb all of the water. So yeah, I'd say we're pretty good. It's pretty combined and it's in its own ball. I'm just gonna get all of this stuff off. Don't wear your rings, your like wedding rings or whatever, or any kind of special jewelry when you're really trying to knead, especially this type of bread, because it's just goopy and gross. And I should have said before, like when you're maintaining the sourdough starter and when you feed it, you're gonna have like extra on your spoon from like mixing and everything. Try to get as much of that possibly off and into the bowl as possible. That way it's not going down your sink, because if you have too much of it in your sink, it can obviously create a cement and like really like gunk it up and clog your sink. So I try to get it off as much as possible, and then I try to flush it with like a lot of water. That way my sink is fine. I also occasionally use Drano just in case, like throughout the seasons. That way it stays as, you know, working as possible. But anyway, other than maintaining your home, we're gonna stick the shower cap on top of the bowl. That way it's like this, and we're gonna leave it on the counter at room temperature for an hour. And then after the hour is back, I will come back and I'll explain the stretch and fold for you. Alrighty guys, so our first hour is up. So that means that our dough should be ready for its first stretch and fold. Again, to reiterate, stretch and folds are for developing the gluten in the sourdough. That way it has enough strength to rise for us. And so what we do, or what I do, is I'm just gonna wet my hands first of all, because it's a really sticky, wet dough. And I think wetting your hands is just a good tip to make sure that you don't have sticky, gross hands afterwards. And it's pretty easy to work with. So we're gonna pretty much do a fold. So we're gonna take like the edge of the sourdough and fold it over inwards. Then we're gonna turn the bowl and then do it again, turn the bowl, do it again, turn the bowl, do it again. So it's 4 stretches, and that's in one of these. And then we're gonna do this at least 3 more times. I try to do it like 4 times. So this is the first stretch and fold, and then in 30-minute increments we're gonna do this again and again and again. And what you're gonna notice with the dough is that it's gonna start with that really like shaggy texture, like that really like dense texture, and then it's gonna start to kind of like loosen up and get really smooth, and by the end it should have elasticity but yet still be really smooth. And I will show you what that looks like, I promise. But I'm gonna wet my hands and kind of set up the camera, that way you can see it better, and we'll go from there. Alrighty guys, so I wet my hands. Usually it's best if they're pretty wet. You can see our dough. It's still pretty like gooey and rough and that shaggy texture, but once we start mixing it, it'll look a lot better. So usually I kind of like scoop my hand underneath it to kind of start, and then you just pull up and down, and that's it. Turn a quarter, get underneath it for you, pull up, put down, pull up, put down. One more, Alrighty, so we got our little ball of dough. It is pretty soft and it smells wonderful. We're gonna leave it, we're gonna cover it up again. Leave that again for 30 minutes and we're gonna do another one and I'll show you kind of the progress. Alrighty guys, 30 minutes has gone by. Now we're on to our second stretch and fold. You can see that the dough has relaxed a little bit. It's not as defined. I'm sure it's going to be softer than it was before. So we're just going to do the same process. Alrighty, beautiful. Now we're just gonna cover it up again and I'll see you in 30 minutes. Alrighty guys, stretch and fold time number 3. Alrighty, so in here you can already see, look, there's a little bubble. That's great, that's what we wanna see. But yeah, let's do it again. And you can see it's getting more elastic. And that's what we want, that's the gluten. It's developing very well. Beautiful, and you can kind of see it's sitting up a little taller after this one. Usually it gets like tighter and tighter. You can see these little strands right here as well. That's the gluten developing that we kind of tore. But yeah, once again, you can do a 4th set of stretch and folds. I like to do 4 just to make sure that it's well developed. If you have the time. If you don't have the time, it's okay. You can go straight into bark fermentation. Bark fermentation, goodness, I can't say that today, is pretty much where you just leave it on the counter and for hours. So I'm gonna probably leave it on the counter until like 9 p.m. tonight. Right now it's like 1:27, so by the time that I finish the next stretch and folds, it'll be 2. So from 2 to 9 p.m. I'm gonna let it sit on the counter, and then at 9 p.m. I'm gonna dump it out and shape it and put it in the banneton, and then cover the banneton and put it in the fridge overnight. That way it can cold proof and get that really sour flavor. But yeah, so what we're looking for after this is that it has risen. It kind of has like a little bit of a dome. Or I should say after the counter bulk fermentation. So at 9 p.m. tonight, I should have like it risen pretty well and then have like a little curved top. And then it should have bubbles as well that you can kind of see. And it should be like a little jiggly. And those are the signs that you should be looking for, that it's ready to be shaped and put in the fridge for the night. But yeah, alrighty guys, this is the 4th and final stretch and fold for me. So we're just gonna do the same thing. You can tell that it has grown a lot of gluten, which is awesome. It's nice and stretchy. You can see that my fingers aren't poking through anymore, which is great. And I'm starting to kind of pick it up. You could feel the tension. And by that 4th one, you're kind of tugging. All right, so there we are. We're gonna leave this guy on the counter. I'm gonna leave it, it's 2 o'clock right now. I'm gonna leave it until 9 p.m. tonight, and then we will come back and I will show you how to shape this and put it in a banneton. That way it can cold proof tonight. I'll also show you kind of when I think it's ready to be stretch and folded. Usually in the summers it's a little warmer in the house, so it does go faster, so you just kind of have to keep an eye on it. When it's a little bit colder, it's a slower process. So it's just kind of variable. You find what works for you. But yeah, I'll come back at 9. Alrighty guys, it is 9:20, almost 9:30, and we are ready to shape and fold the sourdough. You can see that the dough has risen quite a bit. Because this bowl is so large, you can't really tell, but it's probably doubled about in size. It passes the jiggle test, which is good, and you can see that it has little bubbles on the top and kind of on the sides, meaning that there is air being incorporated in it. So what we're gonna need is a Banneton. If you don't have a Banneton, you can use any like bowl and just put like a damp tea towel on it, or not damp, just put a tea towel in it, and then we're gonna sprinkle some flour on it so that it doesn't stick. So I'm just gonna prep my Banneton. Honestly, I put more flour than, you know, you'd think, just because they do tend to stick sometimes. So it's good to have a good even coating of flour. After that, we're gonna flour our work surface. And we want to do this so that it doesn't stick to anything, and we'll also want to get some flour on our hands as well. Some dry. Alright, so we're gonna tip this guy out, and you can kind of see the development of the air bubbles in there. So we're gonna just plop that. There we go. Alright, so this is the bottom. If you pick it up, it's really jiggly and airy, which is really fun. You can hear the air. So what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna make it kind of into like a rectangle. So I'm gonna take it, kind of shake it out a little bit, kind of make it as even as I really can. And again, you could see all the little air bubbles and pockets that are there that'll produce your beautiful crumb. Alright, so now that it's like this, we're going to be doing a letter fold, and then like shape it into this like oval shape. So we're gonna do one turn and another, and then I like to roll it up on the ends. And look, you could see these lovely little air pockets coming out. And it's okay if some of them pop, it's not a big deal. And you're just gonna kind of want to like tuck the ends in, make sure that we've got nice tension. Big old air bubble. Ideally, you kind of want it to look pretty tucked in. That way it's nice when you bake it. But yeah, it looks pretty jiggly. It's honestly really fun to like just hold because it's like squishy. But yeah, you can see all those beautiful bubbles. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna flop it in here. And there's like, sometimes there's like things that you can like pinch together to give more of that tension. I don't tend to mess with it too much just because I don't want the air to go anywhere. Of course it's still going to be fermenting in the fridge overnight, so it'll still have some more growth and stuff. but this is the shape that we want the ball to be in. So yeah, we are gonna just pop this back on. I just like to make sure that it's not touching because sometimes it does grow a little bit. And I'm gonna stick this in the fridge overnight. You can bake it really anytime tomorrow. I'm gonna wake up early-ish so that I can bake it before church. But yeah, so we'll just cold proof it and I'll go through the instructions for how to bake it tomorrow. Good morning, everyone. It's Sunday morning, the day after I started to prep my sourdough. So this morning we are going to be baking the sourdough, that way it's nice and ready. So I took it out of the fridge. I got a piece of parchment paper. I have a little razor. This one's like a fancy bread one, but you can just use like a normal one. I have my handy dandy mittens, and then the Dutch oven has been preheating with the oven at 450 degrees for 30 minutes. So when I turn the oven on, I just stick the Dutch oven in there with the lid and everything. That way it's piping hot and ready for the bread to be put in there along with it. So it's been preheating for 30 minutes. So let's grab that out of here. Please be careful, don't burn yourself. Especially when you're putting the lid back on, because I feel like that's when you kind of forget about it. Alrighty. So that guy is ready to go. Don't touch it. Now we're gonna take the sourdough, and it's nicely cold proofed. You can touch it. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna flip it onto this, and I kind of do it roughly in the middle. Woo, no sticking, which is great. You can kind of see that flour. If that really bothers you, you can try to brush it off. I know some people have specific like flour brushes for it. It's fine. It makes it look pretty, I think. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make an initial cut so that the dough can have the traditional ear in it. And what this does is that it helps it rise and expand. If you're not able to do this, it will expand like any way it can find. Goodness gracious, sorry. It'll expand any way that it can, so you'll find like really weird spots, especially at the bottom where it just kind of like explodes and that way it can expand. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the blade kind of like sideways, and I'm just gonna like and I try to get like below the surface. That way it has that really beautiful ear. Try to cut it like along the edge like of the skin. So that guy's good to go. Now what I'm gonna do is take the lid off of the Dutch oven, and I'm gonna stick this guy in here. And how I'm gonna get that beautiful bubbly shiny crust is I'm gonna put like 2 to 3 ice cubes behind this paper. That way it can create that extra steam for the sourdough, and you know, it just like creates that humidity. 1 ice cube for the puppy. Alrighty. So I just put it in here. You can hear it sizzling, obviously, because it's really hot. Just put the lid back on. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to put it back in the oven. And just guy's good to go. I'm gonna put an initial timer on for 30 minutes with the lid on, and then 15 minutes with the lid off. Another additional thing that I do is within that first 30 minutes, that first initial 7 minutes, we are going to take it back out really quickly, score it again. That way the ear is able to expand even more, and then stick it back in there with the lid on. So technically the dough bakes for 4 to 5 minutes. Once you take it out, it should be hollow, like hollow sounding. So when you like turn it over, you can tap the bottom and it should sound hollow for you. But yeah, so we will see you in 7 minutes. Alrighty, our 7-minute timer went, so I'm gonna grab this out really quick again. Take this off. Looks beautiful. I'm gonna show you. But yeah, we're just gonna cut underneath the, or along the edge again. That way it can expand even more. Just be careful, don't burn yourself, please. Alright, so I did that. Gonna put the lid back on, pop it in for the rest of the 23 minutes, and then we'll take the lid off and let it bake the rest of the way. So yeah. Alrighty, so I ended up just taking the lid off after the 30 minutes was done, and we stuck it in for an extra 15 minutes. So now that 15 minutes is up, and I'm going to take it out of the oven, and it should be all done. It turned out great. It's beautiful. Alright, I will snag it out of here. I usually like to take it out so that it doesn't burn, but there you have it. That's our loaf. Looks very beautiful, very expanded. You can see that beautiful ear. And we'll do the test, the hollow test. I'm just gonna tilt this guy over. Sounds like it's done, which is great. Well, some people like to cut right into it. I like to leave it for at least a couple hours to cool down. That way you can get a really good crumb shot. So whenever this is cooled off, I will cut into it. That way you can see what the crumb looks like. I'm expecting it to look pretty good. But yeah, I'm very happy with it. Alright guys, here it is. Here's the crumb shot. Beautiful. I think it's great. You can see the swirling pattern from where we were mixing it and rolling it, and you can see the evenly dispersed air bubbles, which is great. So it looks like it's perfectly fermented. So I'm gonna give this to one of my family members, and they're gonna love it.